Someone at work kept stealing cash from my wallet. I replaced the bills with prop money, coated in semi-permanent blue dye. The boss called an emergency meeting to see whose hands were blue. The first time it happened, I blamed myself. I was certain I had 350s in my wallet that morning. By lunch, only 2 remained. I stood in the break room counting like a man losing his mind. I let it go. The second time, I didn't. I knew with the certainty of someone who checks his wallet every morning like a prayer that I had $200. By end of day, 50 vanished. No receipt, no memory, just gone. I went to HR. Linda listened with rehearsed sympathy, then told me the locker room had no cameras due to privacy policy. She suggested I track my spending better. I'm a senior financial analyst. I track decimals for a living. But HR wasn't the worst part. The thief wasn't just taking my money, he was taking my credibility. Every time I mentioned missing cash, I caught the eye rolls. And Derek, our top salesman, the golden boy who opened every Monday meeting with a lecture about integrity, would pat my shoulder and say, "Buddy, maybe cut back on the weekend spending." He'd laugh. Everyone laughed. And something inside me that used to be called dignity kept shrinking. 3 months, $600. A reputation as the guy who can't manage his own wallet. That's when I stopped being angry and started being surgical. I spent a weekend researching. I found 2 things. First, prop money, film-grade replica bills, legal to own, visually identical to real cash. Second, theft detection powder. A law enforcement compound used by banks for decades. Invisible when dry, completely undetectable. But the moment it touches skin moisture, it triggers a chemical reaction producing vivid indigo blue dye. Not something soap removes, a semi-permanent bond with skin keratin that takes 5 to 7 days to fade. I read that line 3 times and smiled for the first time in weeks. Sunday night, kitchen table, latex gloves, fine brush. I painted each prop bill on both sides with the patience of a man defusing a bomb. Let them dry. Stack them in my wallet. 5 $50 bills. A perfect trap. Monday, I changed nothing. Bag and locker. Wallet and bag. I needed the thief comfortable. Tuesday morning, my heartbeat was a drum I couldn't silence. I placed my bag at 8:15 and walked away. I sat at my desk staring at spreadsheets I couldn't read. Every number dissolving into one thought. Take the bait. At 12:30, I walked to the locker room and opened my wallet. Empty. Every bill gone. I didn't shout. A cold, surgical calm washed over me. I walked to the office manager and said, "I know who the thief is. I can prove it. Call an emergency meeting." By 2 p.m., 20 people sat around the long, white conference table. Fluorescent lights hummed. Nobody spoke. Mr. Harding stood at the head with the expression of a man whose patience had died hours ago. "Someone in this room has been stealing," he said, voice flat as steel. Everyone hands flat on this table. Palms down. Now. Chairs shifted. Nervous laughter. Then, one by one, 40 hands pressed against the white surface. I scanned left to right. Clean, clean, clean. Pale fingers, bitten nails, a wedding ring catching the light. Then Derek, his hands stayed in his pockets. I actually have a skin condition, eczema. My hands are embarrassing right now. Mr. Harding didn't blink. Hands on the table. Derek. Something behind Derek's eyes collapsed. He pulled his hands out slowly, like drawing a losing card from a stacked deck. They were indigo, not faintly tinted. His palms looked like he'd been bathing in cobalt. The dye had crept under his fingernails, settled into every knuckle crease, and bled onto the cuffs of his expensive white shirt. Against that white table, his hands looked radioactive. 20 people stared. Nobody breathed. Derek started spiraling. Pen, ink, art project with his kid, each excuse thinner than the last. Mr. Harding raised one hand, and Derek's mouth shut like a vault door. Security arrived in 4 minutes. Those 4 minutes were the loudest silence I've ever experienced. Derek stared at his own hands, turning them over, willing the blue away. He couldn't. It came out later that Derek had a gambling addiction. He'd been stealing from at least 4 people over 6 months. The integrity champion, the man who made me feel insane for noticing my own money disappearing, they fired him that afternoon. Security walked him through the lobby with a cardboard box and 2 glowing blue hands he couldn't hide. That dye lasts 5 days. 5 days of grocery shopping, handshakes, and job interviews with indigo palms screaming one word louder than any resume. Thief. I went back to my desk and worked until 6. The numbers were clear again, and for the first time in 3 months, my wallet sat untouched, unviolated, and finally respected.